There's this very specific, um, almost romantic image of the morning runner. I think we've all seen it in those shoe commercials.
Oh, yeah, the highly cinematic version of waking up.
Right, exactly. The alarm goes off, their eyes snap open with like perfect clarity. They just slide into their shoes and glide out the door into this beautiful, misty sunrise.
Looking completely effortless.
Yeah, effortless. It looks almost spiritual.
And as anyone who has actually tried to go for a run at 6 in the morning knows, that image is a complete lie.
It really is. Because, my reality is usually stumbling around in the dark, trying to find a matching sock, tripping over something, and then feeling like my legs are literally made of concrete for the first 2 miles.
Which is completely normal.
Is it? Because I usually spend those first 20 minutes just wondering why I am doing this to myself.
It is actually a perfectly normal physiological response if you are not managing your biology correctly. See, most people treat a morning run as this simple, isolated activity. You wake up, you put on shoes, you run. But the human body does not work like a light switch. You cannot just flip it on and expect peak performance. It is much more like a complex industrial plant that needs a very specific boot-up sequence to function safely and efficiently.
And that is exactly what we are digging into today for this deep dive. We are taking a stack of research and a really comprehensive guide from sundried.com.
A fantastic resource.
Yeah, it is titled Science and Systems of the Optimal Morning Run. I really love that word systems.
Yeah.
Because we are not just talking about how to move your feet faster here. We are getting into hormones, fluid dynamics, neurology, temperature regulation, all of it.
Right. The approach in the sun-dried material is fascinating because it stops treating the run as the start of the process. They argue that the perfect run is actually the result of a physiological negotiation that starts the night before and then peaks about an hour after you wake up.
So if you are listening to this and you have ever felt sluggish, heavy, or just off during a morning jog.
Or if you are training for a marathon and hitting a wall early on.
Exactly. This deep dive is going to explain exactly why that happens and, more importantly, how to fix it using actual data.
We are going to cover the why behind that morning grogginess, the exact math for your caffeine intake, which I can almost guarantee most people are getting wrong, and why touching your toes before you run might actually be making you slower.
I am still shocked by that last one. But let us start with the wake-up call. The alarm goes off. It is early. Why does my body hate me so much in that moment?
Well, the source material mentions something called sleep inertia.
Sleep inertia. It sounds like a difficult physics problem.
It basically is a physics problem for your brain. Sundried highlights this heavily. Sleep inertia is the cognitive and physiological impairment that happens immediately upon waking.
Okay.
When you sleep, your brain is in a completely different neurochemical state. You cannot just snap out of it instantly. The research indicates the average brain takes about 25 minutes to clear that fog.
25 minutes. Wow. So if I roll out of bed and try to run at minute 10,
You are effectively asking a computer to run high-performance gaming software while it is still booting up the operating system.
that is a great analogy. So my system is just lagging.
Exactly. Your motor cortex, the part of the brain controlling movement and coordination, is not fully online yet. Your reaction times are slower. But even more importantly, your hormonal profile is not ready. You are fighting your own biology.
Which brings us to cortisol. Right now, I usually think of cortisol as the stress hormone, like the bad guy we're always trying to lower.
Right, the villain of wellness articles.
Yeah. But the source material says we actually want it in the morning.
Context is everything in biology. Chronic high cortisol from constant stress is bad. But acute morning cortisol, what is known in the literature as the cortisol awakening response, is absolutely essential.
Essential for what?
It is your body's ignition spark. You need that surge of cortisol and adrenaline to mobilize glucose for energy and to sharpen your mental focus. Without it, you are running on fumes. You might be physically awake, but you are metabolically asleep.
Okay, so how do we trigger that spark? Because usually my adrenaline gets going by just panicking about my to-do list for the day.
That will certainly do it, but it is not exactly sustainable. The healthy way to trigger it is light. Light is the primary Zeitgeber.
Kitegiver. I feel like we're learning a whole new language today.
It is German for time giver. It is an external cue that aligns your internal biological clock. The source emphasizes that immediate exposure to bright light, ideally sunlight, but bright blue-enriched indoor light works too, is the signal.
The signal for what, exactly?
It tells your pineal gland to shut down melatonin production and ramp up the cortisol.
So the protocol here is alarm goes off, lights go on immediately. Do not fumble around in the dark trying to keep the room cozy.
Yeah.
You need to blast the system with light.
Exactly. But there's a flip side to this light equation that SunDried is very strict about. If light is the on switch, it is also the keep awake switch. And this is where most runners sabotage their morning run before they even go to sleep.
Ah, the screens. We are talking about phones and laptops in bed.
The screens. If you are blasting your retinas with blue light from a phone or laptop after 9 at night, you are delaying the onset of deep sleep.
Specifically NREM stage 3, right?
Yes, NREM stage 3.
We have touched on deep sleep in other deep dives, but remind us why stage 3 is the holy grail for runners specifically. Why does it matter if I just miss 20 minutes of it?
Because that is when the body's pharmacy opens. NREM stage 3 is when your body releases growth hormone, testosterone, and IGF-1 insulin-like growth factor.
Okay.
Those are the heavy-hitting chemicals that repair the micro tears in your muscles from the previous day's workout.
So if I am just mindlessly scrolling social media until 11:30, I am not just going to be tired the next day. I am physically unrecovered.
You are starting your run with a structural deficit. You are running on damaged hardware because you did not give the maintenance crew enough time to work.
That is a very sobering thought for my late-night habits.
Yeah.
Okay, so let us say we have optimized the light. We are awake. We are waiting out that 25-minute sleep inertia window.
Yeah.
Now we need to talk about putting things into the body. Hydration.
This is non-negotiable. The source points out a fluid homeostasis deficit.
Meaning we wake up negative on water.
Exactly. You have been breathing out water vapor and sweating for maybe 8 hours without a single drop to drink. Your blood is physically thicker when you wake up.
Thick blood. That sounds like something from a horror movie, but I assume that means it is harder to pump.
Precisely. It increases what is called cardiac drift. Your heart has to work at a higher rate just to maintain the same output because the fluid volume in your system is lower.
Wow.
So the clinical recommendation here is the water first rule. Before the coffee, before the food, you drink 6 to 8 ounces of water immediately.
That seems easy enough to do. But the guide gets pretty technical about sodium, which really surprised me. I usually only think about electrolytes if I am running a marathon in July. But SunDried suggests we need to think about it for standard morning runs too.
It depends on the duration, but yes, if you are running for less than an hour, plain water is usually fine. But the source notes that for anything over 60 minutes, plain water can actually be detrimental if you are not careful.
Because you risk diluting your blood sodium levels too much.
Exactly, leading to hyponatremia. To maintain plasma volume, which is what keeps your blood thin and easy to pump, you need sodium.
And the data point they gave for that was, what was it?
300 to 600 milligrams of sodium per hour of running.
That is a very specific range, and 600 milligrams is a decent amount of salt.
It is. It varies based on your individual sweat rate, but the principle stands. If you are going long, water is not fuel. It is just a solvent. You need the minerals. And when you drink matters too. They outline the sip, don't gulp rule.
Oh, the sloshing stomach. I think every single runner has learned this one the hard way. You realize you are thirsty, you chug a huge bottle of water, take 3 steps out the door, and suddenly you feel like a washing machine.
It is the absolute worst feeling. To avoid that gastric distress, the advice is to sip small amounts, about 4 to 6 ounces, every 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, 4 to 6 ounces.
Right, because that matches the rate at which your stomach can actually empty the fluid into the intestines. Any faster than that, and it just sits in the stomach sloshing around, making you nauseous.
Okay, so we are hydrated properly.
Yeah.
Now we walk into the kitchen and we face the great debate. The fasted versus fed controversy. Do I eat before I run?
This is where people get really tribal. You have the Fast for Life crew on one side and the carb-loading crew on the other. But SunDried handles this with a lot of nuance. It is not about which is universally better. It is entirely about the goal of your specific session.
Right, they break it down by intensity. Let's talk about the fasted run first. This is running on an empty stomach. Why would anyone do this voluntarily?
Metabolic flexibility. When you wake up, your liver glycogen, the sugar stored in your liver, is depleted by about 20 to 25%.
Because your brain used it all night to keep your organs running.
Exactly. Your tank is low. If you run in this state, your body is forced to look for an alternative fuel source immediately.
Which would be fat.
Precisely. Fasted training increases fat oxidation. It teaches your body to become much better at burning fat for fuel, and it boosts mitochondrial biogenesis.
Which is essentially creating more power plants within your cells.
Right. So if your goal is general metabolic health or building endurance efficiency, this is a phenomenal tool.
But, and there's a massive but in the text here, There is a speed limit.
A very strict speed limit. The experts warn that fasted running only works for Zone 1 and Zone 2 training.
Let us define Zone 2 for everyone really quickly.
Conversational pace. You could tell a story to someone running next to you without gasping for air.
Okay.
If you push harder than that in a fasted state.
You get the lights out phenomenon.
Yes. High-intensity running things like sprints, tempo runs, hill repeats requires glucose. It is a fast-burning fuel. Fat is a slow-burning fuel. If you try to run fast on a fuel source that burns slow and you have no sugar available, your brain will physically shut you down.
Wow.
Your blood glucose drops rapidly and you hit the wall almost instantly.
So if I'm planning a tempo run or intervals, something where I'm actually going to be breathing hard, I have to eat.
Yes. For Zone 3 and above, carbohydrates are non-negotiable performance insurance.
Here is the logistical problem with that, though. I am rarely hungry at 6 in the morning. And even if I was, eating a bagel 20 minutes before sprinting just sounds like a recipe for throwing up on the neighbor's lawn.
That is the most common hurdle. The solution Sundried suggests is liquid carbohydrates, a sports drink, or even just fruit juice.
Because it skips the digestion process.
Exactly. It does not sit in the stomach. It crosses the gut lining almost immediately. You get the blood sugar spike you need to fuel the sprints without the heavy brick-in-the-stomach feeling.
And what if you can stomach solid food?
Then you really need to watch the clock. A full meal needs 2 to 4 hours to digest. You obviously do not have that kind of time in the morning, so you are looking at a small snack 30 to 60 minutes prior. Simple carbs, graham crackers, a fig bar, applesauce.
Things with low fiber and low fat.
Right. You want it in and out of the stomach as fast as possible.
Got it. Okay, moving on to my absolute favorite legal performance enhancer, caffeine. I felt a bit attacked by this section of the Sun-Dried Guide, honestly, because I realized I had been doing it wrong for years.
Most people do. They treat coffee like this magical instant energy potion.
I literally drink it while I am tying my shoes. I just think, okay, coffee in, shoes on, let's go hit the road.
Which means it kicks in when you are in the shower after the run is already over.
Useless. Completely useless.
Caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors in the brain. Adenosine is the chemical that accumulates to make you feel tired. But the pharmacokinetics, the actual movement of the drug through the body, takes time.
How much time?
Peak plasma concentration happens about 60 minutes after ingestion.
So I need to drink my coffee an hour before the run. That requires some serious time management.
If you want the actual ergogenic benefit during the run, yes. Otherwise, you are just running with warm coffee sloshing in your stomach, not actively working in your blood.
And the dosage they mentioned, it was not just a cup of coffee. It was very specific.
Science loves precision. The sweet spot for true performance enhancement is 3 to 6 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight.
Let us do the math on that. For a 154-pound person, which is about 70 kilos, we are talking...
Between 210 and 420 milligrams.
And a standard cup of coffee is what, maybe 90 or 100 milligrams?
Maybe, depending on the brew. So you're looking at 2, maybe 3 cups, or a very strong double espresso.
Which brings us to the other major problem with coffee, the gastrointestinal consequences.
Right. The acids and oils in coffee stimulate the colon. It stimulates peristalsis. For a runner, that is a very dangerous game to play right before heading out the door.
The dreaded runner's trots.
It is a real issue. That is why the source mentions that serious athletes often bypass the bean entirely and use caffeine pills or specific sports gels. You get the exact milligram dosage without the fluid volume or the gut irritation. It is very clinical, but it is highly effective.
All right. So we are awake, we are hydrated, fueled, and caffeinated. An hour ago, ideally, we are standing at the door. Now, the old gym teacher in my head says, touch your toes, hold it for 30 seconds.
And modern sports science screams, do not do it.
Why? Stretching feels good. I've always been told you had to stretch before exercise to prevent injury.
It feels good, but it performs bad. We are talking specifically about static stretching here, holding a position for a set amount of time. The research shows that static stretching actually sedates the muscle.
Sedates it.
It reduces neural drive and power output. You are essentially telling your muscle to relax and go to sleep right before you ask it to fire explosively.
So I am literally making myself weaker and slower right before the start line.
And potentially more prone to injury, because the muscle is not reacting as quickly to the impact forces of running.
So what replaces the classic toe touch? The source talks about dynamic warming up.
Right. We want activation, not relaxation. We need to lubricate the synovial fluid in the joints and wake up the muscle spindles.
Muscle spindles.
They're the little sensors that tell your brain where your muscles are in space.
Ah, okay. The guide lists some specific moves for this. Leg swings for the first one.
A classic for a reason. You swing the leg forward and back like a pendulum and then side to side across the body. It opens up the hip capsule dynamically through its natural range of motion rather than forcing it into a static hold.
Then there were monster walks and Spider-Man walks.
Great names for exercises. The monster walk involves kicking your leg up straight to touch your opposite hand as you walk forward. It is fantastic for hitting the hamstrings actively.
And the Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man is a very deep lunge where you step your foot all the way outside your hand. It is crucial for opening the hips, especially since we spend all night curled up in the fetal position.
And then there were the drills. A skips and B skips. These felt a bit technical for just a casual morning jogger.
They are technical, but they are absolutely worth learning. These work on neuromuscular coordination. An A skip is that rhythmic high knee skipping you see track athletes do during warm-ups. It teaches the foot to strike the ground efficiently, directly under the hip.
And the B skip.
The B skip takes that high knee and adds a leg extension out front, a pawing motion.
Pawing. Like an animal.
Exactly, like a horse pawing the ground.
Yeah.
You want your foot to be actively moving backward when it hits the ground to propel you forward. B-skips teach that specific mechanic so you are not braking with every single step you take.
And speaking of mechanics and form, we have to mention gluteal amnesia. I love that term. It sounds like a serious medical diagnosis, but I think it just means lazy butt.
It basically is a diagnosis for the modern office worker. We sit on our glutes all day at desks, so the neurological connection degrades. The muscles literally forget how to fire properly.
Wow.
When you run with sleepy glutes, your hamstrings and your lower back have to do all the heavy lifting, which is a one-way ticket to injury town.
And the cue Sundride gives to fix this on the run was a bit strange. They said to run into a stiff wind.
It is a brilliant visualization technique. If you imagine leaning into a strong wind, you naturally lean forward from the ankles, not bending at the waist.
Oh, from the ankle.
Yes, that full body forward lean forces your glutes to engage to keep you from falling on your face. It shifts your center of gravity and corrects your running posture instantly.
Okay, so we are moving well, the mechanics are dialed in, but we also have to deal with the environment outside. The source used a very specific example here, a winter runner in Southend-on-Sea.
Very evocative location choice. Windy, damp, cold. It really paints a visceral picture of the exact conditions that make you want to just stay in bed.
And they introduced the 20-degree rule. I think this is brilliant for anyone who hates the cold.
This is the absolute golden rule of winter running. You should dress as if it is 20 degrees warmer than the thermometer actually says.
Because the body acts like a furnace once you start.
It generates massive amounts of heat once you are moving. If you are perfectly comfortable just standing on your front porch, you are overdressed. You should be shivering slightly for the first 5 minutes.
Really? Shivering?
Yes, because if you are not, you are going to overheat and sweat heavily by mile 2, and then that sweat will freeze against your skin, which is exactly how you get deeply chilled.
Layering is key here then. The guide suggests a synthetic base layer, a fleece mid-layer, and a windproof shell. And I feel like we say this every single time we talk about fitness gear on these deep dives. No cotton.
Cotton is the enemy. It holds onto moisture. In the cold, a wet cotton shirt is a legitimate hyperthermia risk. In the heat, it is a terrible chafing risk. Just say no to cotton gear.
Good advice. Let us pivot to the mental game for a second, because all the caffeine and high-tech gear in the world will not help if your brain just says nope. Sundride talks about psychological entrainment.
This is where elite performance really starts. They discuss visualization, but not in a passive, daydreamy way. It is active sensory rehearsal.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning you do not just see yourself crossing a finish line from a third-person view. You sit there for 10 minutes before the run and try to actively feel the ground under your feet. You try to hear your specific breathing pattern. You feel the burn in your legs on a specific hill on your planned route.
You are tricking your brain.
By simulating the sensory input, you are priming the neural pathways. When you actually hit that hill during the run, your brain goes, oh, I have been here before. I know exactly what to do.
It takes away the shock. It reduces the anxiety of the hard effort.
Drastically. And they pair this mental rehearsal with gratitude. Writing down 3 things you are grateful for releases dopamine and endorphins.
Before you even start running.
Right. It shifts the chemical state of your brain from stress and avoidance to reward and engagement before you even take a single step outside,
It changes the mindset from, I have to do this, to I get to do this.
which is an incredibly powerful performance enhancer on its own.
I want to touch on sustainability before we wrap up today,
Mhm.
because we can execute this perfect morning routine once, but the ultimate goal is to do it for years. The source outlines two major rules for sustainability: the 10% rule and the 80-20 split.
These are the fundamental pillars of running longevity. The 10% rule is simple math. Never increase your total weekly mileage by more than 10% from the previous week.
While 10, though, when at 20 if I'm feeling really good.
Because your cardiovascular system adapts much faster than your skeletal system.
Oh,
Your heart gets fit quickly, your lungs get very efficient, but your bones, your tendons, your ligaments, they take months to strengthen and adapt to the impact. You might have the aerobic win to run 20% further, but your shins do not have the bone density yet.
and that gap between heart fitness and bone fitness is where stress fractures happen.
Exactly.
And what about the 80-20 split?
This refers to your intensity distribution throughout the week. 80% of your total running volume should be easy, truly easy. Zone 2, conversational pace, only 20% should be hard effort.
The problem is the gray zone, right? Because I feel like that is where most of us live.
It is. Most recreational runners run their easy days too hard, mostly because they have an ego about their pace on tracking apps, and then they run their hard days too easy because they are chronically tired from pushing the easy days.
Guilty as charged.
You end up stuck in this middle ground where you accumulate a ton of fatigue, but you do not get the specific physiological adaptations of either true speed or true endurance. You really need to polarize your training. You have to slow down to eventually get faster.
Okay, let us fast forward. We have finished the run. We are back at the house. We have the cool down and the transition to the rest of the day.
Two very quick but crucial points here. First, get the wet clothes off immediately. Your body temperature drops like a stone once you stop generating all that exercise heat.
So hypothermia can happen after the run.
Yes, especially if you sit around the kitchen in damp, sweaty gear, drinking coffee. Get into dry clothes immediately.
And the second point was the anabolic window.
Refueling. So SunDried recommends a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to protein within that first 30 minutes post-run.
To restock the system.
You need the carbs to refill the depleted glycogen tank in the liver and muscles, and the protein to start repairing the muscle tissue damage.
And weirdly enough, they mentioned chocolate milk hits that exact ratio almost perfectly.
It is actually one of the best recovery drinks available. It is simple, it is highly effective, and it is delicious.
You know, looking back at this entire breakdown from SunDried, what really strikes me is that the perfect morning run actually has very little to do with the physical act of running itself.
That is the ultimate takeaway here. It is a system of decisions. It is the decision to turn off the TV and put away the phone at 9 p.m. It is placing the glass of water on the nightstand. It is the dynamic warm-up.
The run itself is just the expression of all that prior preparation.
It really is. It reframes the morning entirely.
It does.
And actually, I want to leave you with one final thought, something the source touches on regarding that initial sleep inertia we discussed. We established that for the first 25 minutes of the day, your brain is chemically compromised. It is not fully online.
Right. You're operating at, what, 60% capacity?
So if you know for a fact your biology is compromised, why do so many of us use those first 25 minutes to check work emails, read the news, or make stressful decisions about our day?
Wow. You wouldn't let a drunk person manage your daily schedule, but you let your sleep-inert brain do it every single morning.
Exactly. Maybe those 25 minutes should be sacred space for the body to just wake up. Do not input high-stress data until the system is fully booted up.
A digital detox for the first half hour? I think that is something I absolutely need to implement starting tomorrow.
It is a total game changer for your stress levels.
This has been an incredibly fascinating look into the biology of the morning. Huge thanks to sundried.com for the deep insights and the data.
A truly great guide to run by.
And thanks to you for listening to this deep dive. We will see you out there on the road, hopefully with your glutes fully activated and your caffeine properly timed. Catch you next time.